Thank you for watching Amir Shakil 5858. I am Amir Budnam. Now the world news by American, Asian and European channels. Asian channels have reported the same news. GMT 800 March 12, 2024. Princess is sorry for the photo episode. Passengers fight in airplane. Powerful winds hit the northeast of America. Brother of Diana talking. Biden and Social Security and Medicaid. Food for Gaza people didn't arrive. Fatalities in bus accident. Ukraine is in need of weapons. Trump tough talk. China's interference in American elections. Oscar nomination and winners. I am thankful to all news resources. Now the news in detail.
Israel is continuing to attack Gaza as Palestinians mark the first day of Ramadan. The death toll from Israel's 5-month assault has topped 31,000. Health officials in Gaza say at least 27 Palestinians have starved to death due to Israel's ongoing blockade of aid deliveries. Over the weekend, 5 Palestinians died in northern Gaza as a pallet of food aid crushed them to death after a parachute failed to open. The United States has begun shipping parts to build a temporary port off the coast of Gaza to increase aid following President Biden's announcement during his State of the Union address last week. But many groups say the plan will take too long and is insufficient to address the looming famine in Gaza. The head of Doctors Without Borders in the U.S. said, quote, the U.S. plan for a temporary pier in Gaza to increase the flow of humanitarian aid is a glaring distraction from the real problem, Israelis' indiscriminate and disproportionate military campaign and punishing siege, unquote. Inside Gaza, Palestinians are struggling to find any food to eat.
I came here to buy, but I can't find anything to buy. There's nothing. There are no dates or milk or anything. One can't find anything for their children. How are we supposed to have sahur, the meal before the fast starts at dawn? How are we supposed to have iftar, the meal that breaks the fast? With canned goods? All these canned goods are full of germs that infect the stomach. We need vegetables and fruits to feed our children because they weakened and died from hunger.
During an interview on MSNBC, President Biden criticized Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu by saying he's hurting Israel more than helping Israel.
He has a right to defend Israel, a right to continue to pursue Hamas, but he must pay more attention to the innocent lives being lost as a consequence of the actions taken. He's hurting, in my view, he's hurting Israel more than helping Israel by making the rest of the world, it's contrary to what Israel stands for. And I think it's a big mistake, so I want to see a ceasefire.
In the same interview with MSNBC's Jonathan Capehart, Biden warned Netanyahu against invading Rafah, but he also vowed to keep arming Israel regardless of what Israel does in Gaza.
What is your red line with Prime Minister Netanyahu? Do you have a red line? For instance, would invasion of Rafah, which you have urged him not to do, would that be a red line?
There's a red line. I'm never going to leave Israel. The defense of Israel is still critical, so there's no red line. I'm going to cut off all weapons so they don't have the Iron Dome to protect them. They don't have. But there's red lines that if he crosses them, he cannot have 30,000 more Palestinians dead.
Netanyahu responded by vowing to defy Biden's red line on Rafah, saying, quote, we'll go there. We're not going to leave. Caribbean leaders are holding an emergency meeting in Jamaica today to discuss the political and humanitarian crisis in Haiti, where armed groups are attempting to force the resignation of Haiti's unelected Prime Minister Ariel Henry, who's long been a U.S. ally. Henry has been stranded in Puerto Rico since last week, unable to return home as increasing violence has left Haitians struggling to secure food and water. Over the weekend, the U.S. flew a team of Marines into Haiti as the security situation around the U.S. Embassy deteriorated. Non-essential staff at the embassy were airlifted out of Haiti. We'll have more on Haiti after headlines. Pope Francis has called on Ukraine to have the courage to wave the white flag and begin negotiations with Russia. The Pope made the comment in an interview with a Swiss broadcaster, RSI.
It is one interpretation. It's true. But I think that the strongest one is the one who looks at the situation, thinks about the people, and has the courage of the white flag, of negotiating. And today, you can negotiate with the help of the international powers. There are some. The word negotiate is a courageous word. When you see that you're defeated, when things are not going well, you have to have the courage to negotiate. One may feel shamed, but how many dead will the war end up with? And it will end even worse. One should negotiate in time. Find a country that can be a mediator.
Several Ukrainian and European officials criticized the Pope's call for negotiations. In New York, former Honduran President Juan Orlando Hernandez was found guilty of cocaine trafficking after a 2-week trial. Federal prosecutors accused Hernandez of ruling the Central American country as a narco state, accepting millions of dollars in bribes from drug traffickers in exchange for protection. Celebrations erupted following Friday's verdict. This is a Honduran activist speaking outside Manhattan's federal courthouse.
The rotten political class we have has brought the country to total collapse, and everyone we see here, this entire community thirsting for justice, is a clear example of a society in total collapse that has been trampled on and sunk by corrupt politicians.
Hernandez was arrested in February of 2022, less than a month after his presidential term ended, and extradited to the U.S. in April 2022. He was a longtime U.S. ally. His brother is already serving a life sentence in the U.S. for smuggling cocaine. Juan Orlando Hernandez faces life in prison as well. We'll have more on the trial later in the show. The Sudanese military has rejected UN calls for a truce in fighting with its rival rapid support forces during the Muslim holy month of Ramadan. The RSF had said it welcomed the truce. The UN Security Council adopted a resolution Friday urging an end to nearly 1 year of fighting. The UN also expressed grave concern over the deteriorating humanitarian crisis in Sudan. This is China's deputy UN ambassador speaking Friday.
The lives of all the people in the world are precious. While adopting a resolution on a ceasefire during the month of Ramadan in Sudan, the Security Council must not forget that the people of Gaza are still suffering under bombardment. The international community must push forward for an immediate ceasefire and an end to the conflict in Gaza to give the people some hope for survival and provide the basic security necessary for all religious activities by the Muslims there.
In an interview with MSNBC, President Biden said he regrets using the word illegal during his State of the Union to address Venezuela to describe a Venezuelan immigrant accused of killing Laken Riley, a Georgia nursing student.
An undocumented person. And I shouldn't use illegal, it's undocumented.
So you regret using that word?
Yes.
During a campaign rally in Georgia, former President Donald Trump attacked Biden over the issue.
I say he was an illegal alien, he was an illegal immigrant, he was an illegal migrant, and he shouldn't have been in our country, and he never would have been under the Trump policy.
During the same speech, Trump mocked President Biden's stutter.
Didn't it bring us together? Bring the country together. I'm going to bring it together. No.
Donald Trump's rally in Georgia came a day after he hosted Hungary's authoritarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban at Mar-a-Lago. Trump openly praised Orban's autocratic style of rule.
There's nobody that's better, smarter, or better leader than Viktor Orban. He's fantastic. And it's a great job. He's a non-controversial figure because he said this is the way it's going to be. That's the end of it, right? He's the boss.
That was Donald Trump speaking at Mar-a-Lago. A UN fact-finding mission has found Iran is responsible for the physical violence that killed Mahsa Amini in September 2022, sparking historic nationwide protests for months. Mahsa Amini was a 22-year-old Kurdish woman who was arrested by Iran's so-called morality police, allegedly for not wearing a hijab properly. Hundreds of people were arrested in demonstrations that erupted after her death. In a recent report, UN officials also accused Iran of committing crimes against humanity while employing, quote, unnecessary and disproportionate use of lethal force, unquote, to crack down on the protests. Hundreds were killed by Iranian police forces, while at least 9 demonstrators have been executed. Millions of people across the globe took to the streets Friday marking International Women's Day. Marches took place in Pakistan, Indonesia, Bangladesh, Spain, Ukraine, Brazil, and dozens of cities around the world. In a historic move, France enshrined abortion rights in its constitution as crowds gathered in Paris Friday. Meanwhile, over 180,000 people rallied in Mexico City, denouncing rampant gender violence and femicides as nearly 10 women were killed every day in Mexico last year.
I worry about my friends. I'm worried something might happen to my daughter when she goes out to the street. I'm worried for all the women who never returned home and the families who are looking for them.
And hundreds of protesters calling for a ceasefire in Gaza blocked traffic on Sunset Boulevard and Hollywood Sunday, forcing a short delay to the start of the Oscars. Several actors and musicians wore red Artists for Ceasefire pins, including Oscar-winning Billie Eilish, Rami Youssef, and Mark Ruffalo, who arrived late to the ceremony due to the protests. During the Oscar ceremony, filmmaker Jonathan Glazer condemned the Israeli occupation after his Holocaust film, The Zone of Interest, won an Oscar for Best International Film.
Our film shows where dehumanization leads at its worst. It shaped all of our past and present. Right now, we stand here as men who refute their Jewishness and the Holocaust being hijacked by an occupation which has led to conflict for so many innocent people. Whether the victims of October the 7th in Israel or the ongoing attack on Gaza, all the victims of this dehumanization. How do we resist?
The Oscar for Best Documentary went to 20 Days in Mariupol, about Russia's siege on the Ukrainian city. The film was directed by Mstislav Chernov, a Ukrainian video journalist with the Associated Press.
This is the first Oscar in Ukrainian history. And I'm honored. But probably I will be the first director on the stage who will say, I wish I've never made this film. I wish to be able to exchange this to Russia never attacking Ukraine, never occupying our cities.
Go to Democracy Now! To see our coverage of 20 Days in Mariupol and The Zone of Interest. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report.
You're watching The World Today here on France 24. Good to have you with us for the programme today. Let's bring you up to date with the main news headlines. Haiti's Prime Minister Ariel Henry announces that he will resign once a transitional presidential council is created. That as violent gangs continue their takeover across the country with thousands of people killed and displaced. We'll report in the news and I'll discuss the latest as well with our international affairs editor, Philip Tell. A ship taking almost 200 tons of food to Gaza has now left a port in Cyprus early today, 2 days though later than planned. A ship towing a barge containing around 200 tons of flour, rice and protein. We talked to our reporter Andrew Hillier. He'll join us from Jerusalem. And Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says that Russian advances have been halted in Ukraine and the situation is now much better for his troops than in recent months. And as France's politicians are set to debate aid to Ukraine later on. Also coming up in focus today, whilst Oppenheimer swept the Oscars, the film did not capture the impact of his nuclear tests on local residents, cancers, birth deformities and organ failures, 5 times higher than the national average. And the violin of the Italian composer Niccolo Paganini under the spotlight, or rather in fact under the laser, the violin known as Il Canone, being checked for any minor flaws for potential repairs as an internal 3D image is also produced. Those 4 then of people killed, more than 15,000 homeless, armed gangs burning police stations, attacking the airport, and more than 4,000 inmates released from all but destroyed prisons. It is the situation now in Haiti as Prime Minister Ariel Henry announces he will resign once a transitional presidential council is created. Henry then will capitulating to international pressure that seeks to save the country overwhelmed by the gangs. Some experts even describe events in Haiti as a low-scale civil war. Matthew Mary-Carachet has this report.
After steadfastly refusing to relinquish power, Haitian Prime Minister Ariel Henry made an about-face via video message recorded in the United States.
The Council of Ministers tonight accepted to put in place a transitional presidential council. The members of this council will be picked after agreement with various sectors of the nation. My government will step down immediately after the establishment of said council.
Henry has been locked out of his own country as roving armed gangs have freed inmates from prison, taken over 80% of the capital, and shuttered Haiti's main international airport. It is unclear if and when he will be able to return to Haiti, and it is equally unclear when or how his transition from power will take place. There are few other governmental authorities operating in Haiti, which currently has neither a president nor a parliament. Elections have not been held since 2016. Henry's announcement came as the United States and Caribbean leaders met in Jamaica to discuss how to prevent Haiti from falling into civil war.
I'm very confident that we have found commonality and we have found a common path through which we can support a Haitian-led solution and a Haitian-owned solution.
The United States announced that it will provide a total of more than $330 million in humanitarian aid and funding for a UN-backed security mission. Henry traveled to Kenya late last month and signed a deal for 1,000 police officers to keep the peace in Haiti, but they have yet to deploy. But in the meantime, the Haitian population faces food shortages, poorly functioning hospitals, and gangs roving unsecured streets.
Well, let's discuss the very latest, and I'm joined here on set by international affairs editor Philip Tell. Philip, do we know at this stage what exactly has been agreed?
Right, what we do know is that there is a transition council we just hearing about. There's going to be 2 observers in that transition council and 7 voting members who will then appoint an interim prime minister. I'm unsure whether or not Ariel Henry will remain in post until then, but he has now officially resigned, which was, of course, one of the key demands of the armed gangs in Haiti, that he should step down from power and they would stop or wind down their attacks in the country. We'll have to see whether or not that happens. There are also other measures that have been advanced, put forward by Anthony Blinken, the US Secretary of State. He said that there'll be $100 million worth of additional money to finance the deployment of a multinational force in Haiti. The creation of a special college to take what he called concrete steps for the deployment of that force, which will be led by Kenya, with doubling of support by the US Defense Department. Now, you have to remember that Ariel Henry actually did go to Kenya to try to drum up that international force to come in and put an end to the violence in the country. That is why he wasn't allowed back in Haiti afterwards. He's been in Puerto Rico since then, unable to return home basically because the airport is under siege and the main ports are blocked. Now, what is going to happen to Ariel Henry remains unclear. The US is saying he can remain in Puerto Rico, which is a territory of the United States for the time being, but it doesn't look as though he's going to return back to Haiti anytime soon, even though he said that is one of his objectives. It's unclear how this peacekeeping force is going to be drawn up and exactly what its role is going to be, bearing in mind the fact that a peacekeeping force that goes into Haiti could very quickly, if the violence isn't quelled, be perceived as being an occupation force, and that's something certainly I don't think anybody in Haiti wants to see happening.
Have we had any reaction at all from the armed groups to this?
Well, there has been some reaction so far. There's the leader of one of the biggest armed groups
His name is Jimmy Cherizier. He's best known as Barbecue. That's his street name. He said that he's not in favour of these international efforts to calm down the situation in Haiti. He says that we Haitians have to decide who is going to be the head of the country and what model of government we want. So that doesn't look too inspiring so far for the moment as to exactly what the armed gangs are going to do. I think the pressure is now shifting from Ariel Henry's shoulders onto the armed gang shoulders, saying, okay, look, armed gang, we have got rid of the Prime Minister for you. That is one of your key demands. You have always deemed him to be someone who is illegitimate, who is corrupt. Now he's out of the picture. It's up to you now to come forward to move forward with us in some kind of negotiating way to pull Haiti out of the extremely bad crisis it's in at the moment. Just to give you some ideas about what's happened since the 29th of February, government have burned police stations, closed the main international airports, raided the country's two biggest prisons. 4,000 inmates have been freed. The main port in Port-au-Prince is closed. That means that ships bringing food into the country, 50% of food is imported into Haiti. They are blocked. They can't get into the country, which has raised even more fears about starvation and hunger in Haiti. 4.7 million people are said to be suffering from acute food shortages in Haiti. So the pressure is absolutely immense on the shoulders of all concerned to find some kind of solution and some kind of way out. But the question still remains, Stuart, and that is the main question here, is how will government representatives, opposition groups, private sector, civil society, religious groups, and the armed gangs all get together around the negotiating table, and how will they hammer out together and be in agreement about just how Haiti is going to move forward under this new transitional council?
Thanks so much for it. International Affairs Editor on France 24. Now, a ship taking almost 200 tons of food to Gaza has left a port in Cyprus early today, 2 days later, though, than planned. The charity ship Open Arms sailing out of Larnaca, towing a barge containing around 200 tons of flour, rice and protein. It's a pilot project to open a new sea route in aid to the population on the brink, of course, of famine. We're going to cross to Jerusalem, talk to our reporter who joins us from there, Andrew Hillier. And he reports then that, first of all, the latest on this aid ship, it was set to leave on Cyprus. It has, we're being told now, eventually set sail.
Yes, Stuart, we've been following these developments over the past few days, so a confirmation that the Open Arms vessel has left its port in Cyprus, heading to Gaza, carrying about 200 tons of humanitarian aid. It should take about 2 to 3 days to reach Gaza. It was supposed to set sail over the weekend. It's unclear what exactly is behind those delays. There could have been logistical delays. We've been told that officially Cypriot customs officials are responsible for carrying out the security checks on the cargo in the presence of Israeli officials who play an observer role. But we haven't heard of any problems at that stage. Another reason for the delay may be uncertainty surrounding exactly how and where the ship is going to unload the humanitarian aid once it does reach Gaza. As far as we're aware, there are no piers large enough currently operational off the coast of Gaza for the ship to unload its aid. Of course, the ship can't get too close to the shore because the waters off the coast of Gaza are very shallow. We've heard that the charity running this aid mission, World Central Kitchen, may be constructing a makeshift jetty off the coast of Gaza using rubble, but we don't know how long it'll take for the charity to finish building that makeshift jetty. In the meantime, we know the US is sending a ship to Gaza to construct a temporary pier, but again, that will be ready any time soon. It could take up to 2 months to complete, we're told.
And you also got reports that the number 3 of Hamas may have been killed. What's the latest you're hearing on that?
Yeah, so the IDF has aired footage of what it says is a strike on a tunnel in central Gaza's Nusayrat area that happened on early Sunday. The Israeli military says that Marwan Issa, that's Hamas's number 3, was hiding in the tunnel along with other commanders of Hamas, including, we're told, a commander in charge of Hamas's weaponry across the Gaza Strip. Now, neither Israel nor Hamas have confirmed Marwan Issa's death at this stage. Israel says it's working to get more information. It also says that according to its intelligence, there were no hostages being held in the tunnel at the time of the strike. But if Marwan Issa's death is confirmed, it would be very significant. Marwan Issa, aside from being Hamas's number 3, is the deputy to Mohammed Daif. Mohammed Daif is the head of Hamas's military wing, the Al-Qassam brigade. The two men are very close. Israel also believes that Marwan Issa, along with Yahya Sinwar, who is the head of Hamas, was one of the masterminds behind the October 7th attacks. Of course, those attacks are what triggered the current war in Gaza. So if his death is confirmed, it would be very significant indeed.
And thanks very much, Andrew Hillier, joining us there from Jerusalem. Now, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says that Russian advances have been halted in Ukraine, and the situation is now much better for his troops than in recent months. He's facing mounting pressure on the front line in recent months, losing ground to Moscow amid hold-ups to Western aid from its biggest ally, Washington. Zelensky also saying his forces in the process of building over 1,000 kilometers of fortifications.
Right now, the Russian advance has been halted. The advance is happening in the east of the country. Now our forces have stopped them there. Their advance has been halted and they're losing a large number of active troops.
Volodymyr Zelensky there. Well, later today, France's National Assembly is going to vote on its aid strategy for Ukraine. It's a symbolic debate and vote, which serves as a background, really, of a battleground between supporters of President Emmanuel Macron on the far right and left here in France amidst the European election campaign. Well, the Farry report.
For France's government, it'll be a moment of truth, 3 months ahead of the European elections, a debate and then a vote in the National Assembly on the strategy of French aid for Ukraine. The aim is to force political parties to take a stance on the war and Russia. Prime Minister Gabriel Attal set the tone of the weekend with a particular focus on Marine Le Pen's national rally.
For the national rally, any wavering or weakness towards Russia is fine.
But the far-right party said the government was just exploiting the Ukraine war.
The trial of Russia's supporters is detached from reality and serves just to distract voters from the real issues.
Recent comments by President Emmanuel Macron are also likely to stir the debate. In late February, the president said he would not rule out sending Western troops to Ukraine, which his political opponents say would be irresponsible.
I reiterated our complete opposition to troops going in.
We are asking that any response be an organized one and that we do not go beyond what Zelensky asks us.
After the National Assembly, there will be a similar debate in the Senate on Wednesday.
5 people have died as violent storms have swept southern France. Rescue services continuing their search for 3 missing people, including 2 children. With the latest for us, here's Siobhan Silk.
It was under this bridge over the Hérault River in southern France where passersby spotted the body of an 87-year-old man on Monday morning. The victim was tangled in branches. Witnesses said his car was washed up on the bank nearby.
He was caught on a tree. Firefighters, divers, and police had been sent. And then there was something on the ground covered by a sheet. And afterwards, we learned that this gentleman had died.
He's one of several people confirmed dead in the region after unseasonal flooding over the weekend. Another body was found on the Gardon River around 100 kilometres further east. It's believed to be that of a father whose car was swept away as it crossed a submerged bridge. The mother of the family was rescued at the last moment. Their 2 children, aged 4 and 13, are still missing. Throughout Monday, search teams scoured riverbanks in the flooded areas using sniffer dogs to cover the dangerous marshy land.
We are working in a very wide zone, and this coastal water has specific characteristics. The banks are narrow, there are rocks, crevices. The water is still very muddy.
Rescuers are also using drones to search stretches of river from the air, allowing them to make a detailed survey of the difficult terrain. An intensive search is also being carried out along the Hérault River in southwestern France, where at least 1 man is missing.
Siobhan Silk there with that report. Now, it was the favourite violin of the Italian composer Niccolo Paganini. But now the violin, which is known as Il Canone, is deemed so special that it's been given a real X-ray treatment to try to discover its secrets. Experts in Grenoble in eastern France firing X-rays at the 18th century violin, which is worth millions. Its very cellular structure of the actual wood being examined to see if any repairs are potentially needed. 3D model of the violin also produced. Paganini played it for decades apparently before it became the property of his home, sitting on his death in 1840. Perhaps not surprisingly, it is now played extremely rarely.
So we now know much more about the health of the instrument. And this for us was very important because when you Paganini himself said, I leave my violin to the city of Genoa, that it be perpetually preserved. That was part of his will. And so now we are better able to understand the instrument and better able to conserve the instrument.
At least it's being exceptionally well looked after. Now let's bring you focus on today's programme. And Oppenheimer, of course, swept at the Oscars, detailing the creation of the atomic bomb at the Trinity test site. But what the film failed to capture really was the impact on local residents. Between 1944 and 1986, the US Department of Defense dumped more than 30 million tons of Ukraine on an area between Arizona and New Mexico, known as the uranium belt. The radioactive exposure resulting in dozens of cancers, birth deformities, and organ failures at a level 5 times higher than the national average. Almost 80 years after the first nuclear test in New Mexico, the US Senate earlier this year voting to extend reparations to victims of radioactive contamination. For France 24, Pierre Laurent, Valérie Defer, and Weston Cornet of this report.
It's a location that is only open to the public twice a year, so tourists arrive here at dawn by the thousands. It is on this military base in the heart of the New Mexico desert that the first nuclear weapon was detonated in complete secrecy. At 5:30 a.m. on July 16, 1945, the blast released 21 kilotons of power. Heidi Hallowell and her family drove more than 500 kilometers to come here.
Interesting. Well, it went up to about almost 2, and then it came down again.
Heidi is using a Geiger counter to measure radioactivity levels in the area.
It's humbling, I think, because it started an entirely new era for humanity. So it's just been wonderful coming here and seeing the history, but also understanding, what came of this in the end. It completely changed the world and made it a little unsafer in many ways.
Today, the level of nuclear particles on the site is no longer dangerous, but in 1945, the radioactive cloud spread over the entire region.
We don't know exactly how much plutonium was in the core. That number is still classified. All the immediate area was already evacuated as part of the bombing range. The areas off the range were not evacuated because it was determined that there would not be any significant fallout in that area, and so they preferred to try and keep the test a secret.
But as soon as they leave, visitors see local residents who are there to tell a different version of history.
5 generations of cancer. All we're trying to do is to make sure that the people that deserve healthcare are getting healthcare.
For these people, the scientific feat of 1945 still feels a lot like a curse.
They overglorify the science and industry, but they don't speak about the fact that within a 50-mile radius of this location, there were 13,000 people living here. And our lives were changed forever because a radioactive ash fell for days afterwards, and we're sick and dying. I'm the 4th generation in my family to have cancer. The first question they asked me was when we were exposed to radiation. And now I have a 23-year-old niece who has thyroid cancer.
Tina Cordova has been fighting for reparations for over a decade. The U.S. Senate has finally voted to extend compensation, but the amendment still has to be ratified by the House of Representatives.
We will be able to apply for a payment of partial restitution, and they set up screening clinics so we can go annually and be screened for cancer. All those things are very important because our state's very rural and we don't have access to healthcare.
In New Mexico, radioactive contamination was not just limited to nuclear testing. Starting in 1944, in order to develop its arsenal, the Department of Defense mined over 4 million tons of uranium on Navajo lands. It ended the practice in 1986 to source cheaper metal abroad.
They left all their contamination, all their waste for the community members, grassroots organization to deal with.
Larry worked at this uranium mine for 8 years.
UNC mine was here. Just less than a quarter mile was Kermit mine.
At the time, miners weren't told about the dangers of working here.
There was no mandatory real protection whatsoever. We were not told being exposed to uranium or any contaminant, how it might affect your health later in life. We were not forewarned of that, nothing.
For years now, Larry has been suffering from respiratory issues for which he has received no medical or financial assistance. Today, there are still over 500 abandoned uranium mines on the Navajo Reservation and many piles of contaminated soil left out in the open.
You see this little pile here behind the orange signs? That's part of this mess back here, the uranium waste pile. And that waste pile is coming out of the mines.
Edith has lived here all her life and worked at the mine for 6 years. She's just undergone a second cancer surgery.
Our livelihood was here. We raised the animals for food, to take care of them. We had our own cornfield. We didn't know what danger was in there. It affected your livelihood.
Intensive mining also led to the largest radioactive accident in U.S. history. In July 1979, the dam of a radioactive waste storage basin was breached, spilling millions of liters of contaminated water onto Navajo land. It took days for authorities to warn residents of the toxic dangers from the spill.
Especially in these indigenous populations, they really don't care. I don't have to deal with it. It's not in my yard. But then I turn around and say, we didn't ask you to come here. We didn't ask you to do this to the land. So you clean it up. Life and death, they go on daily. But it's the children that are coming up that you have to want this for.
The government has pledged to clean up the area and has proposed to relocate this community to the nearest town. Yet another insult to these Navajo people who intend to remain on their ancestral lands and preserve their ancient culture.
Yeah, special report for you there for France 24 from Pierre Laurent, Valérie Defer, and Weston Cornet. Beautifully filmed as well out there in the US. That is the latest news for you here today on The World Today. The very latest stories coming up for you once again after the break, so do stay with us if you possibly can.
But we do want to begin with this breaking news just coming in of a deadly school bus accident in western Illinois. State police say 5 people were killed, including 3 children, when the school bus crossed over the yellow line and then slammed into a semi-truck. Both the bus and the truck burst into flames, killing everyone on board both vehicles. CBS Roxanne Severian starts off tonight with the tragic details.
Charred and twisted metal is all that remains of the school bus and semi-truck that collided in Rushville, Illinois this morning.
Preliminary information indicates that the bus was traveling west on Route 24 and for an unknown reason crossed over into the eastbound lanes in front of the semi-truck. Both vehicles became engulfed in flames.
It happened on this stretch of highway in the rural community of Schuyler County, Illinois, about 200 miles southwest of Chicago. Police say the school bus hit the semi-truck, hauling a load of sand.
It's a close-knit family.
But we do want to begin with this breaking news just coming in of a deadly school bus accident in western Illinois. State police say 5 people were killed, including 3 children, when the school bus crossed over the yellow line and then slammed into a semi-truck. Both the bus and the truck burst into flames, killing everyone on board both vehicles. CBS Roxanne Severian starts off tonight with the tragic details.
Charred and twisted metal is all that remains of the school bus and semi-truck that collided in Rushville, Illinois this morning.
Preliminary information indicates that the bus was traveling west on Route 24 and for an unknown reason crossed over into the eastbound lanes in front of the semi-truck. Both vehicles became engulfed in flames.
It happened on this stretch of highway in the rural community of Schuyler County, Illinois, about 200 miles southwest of Chicago. Police say the school bus hit the semi-truck, hauling a load of sand.
It's a close-knit family, and you have lost a life like this. It's devastating.
All 3 children on the bus and both drivers were killed. The crash comes amid a recent spate of bus accidents. An estimated 108 people were killed in school bus-related crashes across the country in 2021. Just last Wednesday, a service truck ran a red light in Wisconsin, slamming into a school bus and injuring 8 students. And tonight, a school bus crashed into a house in Dorchester, Massachusetts. In today's crash, investigators from the Schuyler Sheriff's Department are now searching for clues on the cause of the collision. Tonight, the city of Rushville is asking people to lower their flight to half staff. The names of the victims have not yet been released.
Roxanne Severian, thank you so much. Overseas now to Gaza with the Muslim holy month of Ramadan now underway and a growing rift between President Biden and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. At a congressional hearing today on global threats, Avril Haines, the director of national intelligence, warned that the war in Gaza will likely have a generational impact on terrorism. Now, this is the U.S. military today conducted its 7th airdrop of humanitarian aid to the region. CBS Chris Say reports tonight from Jerusalem.
With ceasefire negotiations failing, Israel says it's mobilizing for an offensive on Rafah, a Hamas stronghold, but also a refuge to 1.5 million Palestinians. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is vowing his military will push ahead regardless of concerns from the
White House, arguing any friction with the U.S., Israel's biggest ally, emboldens Hamas.
But the extent that Hamas believes that there's daylight between us, that doesn't help.
President Biden has been sharpening his criticism of Netanyahu over the loss of civilian life in Gaza.
He's hurting Israel more than helping Israel by making the rest of the world. It's contrary to what Israel stands for.
Israel insists it will allow a major evacuation of Rafah before the offensive, but hasn't revealed exactly how. This week marks the start of Ramadan, the Islamic holy month, a time of prayer and fasting, but in recent years, violence as well, over Israeli restrictions on accessing Muslim holy sites in Jerusalem. Muslims are heading to the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound. It's a flashpoint in Ramadan's past, and this year, with the war in Gaza, tensions are boiling. Summer Sinaj Lawi is an activist with the Palestinian political party, Fatah.
On Ramadan, everybody suddenly will feel that he has a sense of responsibility to act, not only to show solidarity. Suddenly the images that are coming out of Gaza that generated some kind of grief and sorrow will be translated into anger.
Now, hopes for a ceasefire aren't dead. CIA Director Bill Burns was in the region this weekend to negotiate. Now, Israel government here in Jerusalem is insisting Hamas release the dozens of Israeli hostages it's been holding for 5 months, but so far north, Hamas is refusing.
Let's say with any reporting, thank you. Now to America Decides 2024 and the race for president. Tonight, there's a shakeup at the Republican National Committee engineered by Donald Trump. CBS News has learned that dozens are being pushed out as the former president's allies and his daughter-in-law take over. Here's CBS Nancy Cordes with headlines from the campaign trail.
Campaigning in New Hampshire today, President Biden brought up the company his opponent kept this weekend.
He was Viktor Orban, who talked about democracy being the problem.
Viktor Orban is the authoritarian-leaning leader of Hungary who has cracked down on the judiciary, the press, and LGBTQ+ rights. He drew high praise from Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago.
He said this is the way it's going to be in the end, right? He's the boss. And he's a great leader, fantastic leader.
Orban later told the Hungarian press that Trump had promised he would not give a penny to Ukraine if elected. The Trump campaign disputes that. They're also fielding questions about Trump's abrupt reversal on TikTok. He now opposes a ban on the Chinese-owned social media site.
It was a meeting that lasted for a few minutes.
In an interview this morning, Trump denied that his change of heart came after meeting with financier Jeff Yost, whose fund has a multi-billion-dollar stake in TikTok's parent company.
I don't think I ever met him before, but he never mentioned TikTok.
In the same interview, Trump suggested he is open to cutting Medicare or Social Security to save money. Biden seized on that in New Hampshire.
I'm never going to allow that to happen. I won't cut Social Security, I won't cut Medicare.
In the wake of his State of the Union address, Biden is hitting battleground states and airing a new ad about his age.
Look, I'm not a young guy. That's no secret. But here's the deal. I understand how to get things done for the American people.
In Rome, Georgia this weekend, Trump called Biden's State of the Union speech an
angry, dark, hate-filled rant.
Then he mocked the president's lifelong stutter.
Raise your bring the country together.
It was not the first time Trump has made fun of disability or speech disorder. A Biden campaign official said that it shows that Trump is, quote, weak and insecure. He gave the same speech that Trump referred to reporters as criminals. Nora?
Nancy Cordes at the White House, thank you. The powerful winds that howled from Virginia to New England today turned deadly outside the capital of Pennsylvania. A 43-year-old man was killed overnight when the wind blew down a tree hitting his home. Winds topping 50 miles an hour were reported at the time. The threat continues tonight across the northeast. Tonight update for U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is in Jamaica, calling an emergency meeting with several Caribbean leaders as the surge in violence in Haiti has that country on the verge of collapse. Over the weekend, the U.S. military evacuated some U.S. embassy workers for safety reasons. The turmoil started last month with these powerful gangs demanding that the prime minister step down. CBS News has more on the growing crisis.
Haiti is on the brink of collapse. Armed gangs have a stranglehold on the capital, setting fire to police stations and storming prisons to free thousands of inmates. The latest violence led the U.S. to evacuate non-essential personnel from the embassy in Port-au-Prince over the weekend. The Haitian people were caught in the middle. The situation in the country is critical. People can no longer go about their business, says this man. The gangs are threatening all-out war unless Haiti's Prime Minister Ariel Henry resigns. He is stuck in Puerto Rico after gangs attacked the main airport. Today, Secretary of State Antony Blinken flew to Jamaica for an emergency meeting with leaders from other Caribbean nations. The State Department says it's in touch with Americans trapped in Haiti.
If they're in Haiti, they should leave as soon as it's safe for them to do so.
Henry took over after the assassination of Jovenel Moïse in 2021 and has delayed new elections. The turmoil has displaced 15,000 Haitians over the last week, and nearly 1,200 have been killed and 700 injured since the beginning of the year. Jacqueline Charles covers the Caribbean for the Miami Herald.
What is the life like right now for a normal Haitian family?
There's only a few days of fuel that's left for electricity. Schools are closed. Hospitals have also been overtaken by the gangs. We've also done the same with police stations. I mean, people are really just on their own.
For U.S. citizens in Haiti, the options to evacuate are limited because major U.S. carriers have suspended flights. If the situation there does not improve, CBS News has learned a full evacuation of the U.S. embassy is likely. Nora?
Very dangerous, Nancy Cordes. Thank you so much. Well, tonight there are new questions surrounding the health of the Princess of Wales. Kate Middleton's last public event was 2.5 months ago. And except for a few paparazzi-style photos, she hasn't been seen since Christmas. Now a photoshopped image of Princess Catherine and the royal children as the future queen apologizing. CBS Charlie Dagger reports.
The controversy started innocently enough. A family photo of the Princess of Wales and the smiling children to mark Mother's Day here in Britain, but then came the kill order from several global news agencies like the Associated Press, saying it appears the photo had been manipulated at source. Apparently, not very well. Observers noted more than a dozen inconsistencies. A sleeve that didn't line up with Charlotte's wrist, a skewered zipper on Kate's jacket, and her blurred hand around Louis. Initially, the palace refused to comment, but today the princess tweeted, "Like many amateur photographers, I do occasionally experiment with editing. I wanted to express my apologies for any confusion the family photograph caused." But it's the first official photo since Kate underwent unspecified abdominal surgery nearly 2 months ago, and the doctored image only fueled the tempest of speculation surrounding Catherine's health.
I've never seen anything in all the other videos like today.
And is it because so many people want to know what's going on?
I think it's because we haven't really had a situation like this where two very senior members of our family are unwell.
The shot was taken by Prince William, seen today at Commonwealth service, who's been flying solo to the face of the monarchy for weeks. His father, King Charles, undergoing cancer treatment, his wife still recovering from surgery, dealing with health-related issues at home, and now scrutiny on the world stage. Tonight, our sources close to the palace called the controversy a storm in a royal teacup. But Nora, that Photoshop fail won't do much to dampen down the speculation around the princess's well-being.
And so many questions left, Charlie Dagger. Thank you. Officials in Florida are investigating a rare and terrifying encounter with a crocodile that's in a man's hospital. We've got the details next. A 68-year-old man is recovering after being bitten by a rare crocodile in Florida's Everglades National Park. Officials say the man was trying to swim ashore yesterday afternoon after his boat capsized when he was bitten on the leg. He was taken to the hospital in stable condition. Wildlife officials are monitoring the American crocodile, which is listed as a threatened species in the U.S. Now, this consumer alert, Airbnb announced a ban today on all indoor security cameras at rental properties around the world. Hosts now have until the end of April to get rid of any indoor cameras. Now, the outdoor security cameras are still permitted as long as guests know about them before they book. Heart of America is next with the U.S. Women's National Soccer Team back on top.
This portion of the CBS Evening News is sponsored by Ancestry. Discover, preserve, represent.
Finally, tonight's Heart of America with a team that has captured America's heart time and time again. The U.S. Women's National Soccer Team returned to their winning ways after beating powerhouse Brazil last night 1-0 in the finals of the inaugural Women's Gold Cup in San Diego. U.S. captain Lindsey Horan knocked in the game's lone goal because of this incredible header just before the half in front of a sellout crowd. Horan said it's been a hard-fought journey.
We dealt with a lot of different kind of adversity and ups and downs, and so I'm really proud of the way we came out of it and getting a win at the end.
We're proud too. After an early exit from the 2023 World Cup and a bronze medal at the 2020 Olympics, the U.S. women have their sights set on gold at the Paris Games this summer. Congratulations and good luck to the U.S. Women's National Soccer Team. That's tonight's Heart of America. And that's tonight's CBS Evening News. I'm Nora O'Donnell. Good night.
Tonight's several stories as they come on. Powerful and deadly winds slam against power outages, trees on homes, and the winds now coming tonight. Also news coming in a deadly bus accident colliding with a tractor trailer. Multiple adults and children did not survive this. And the passenger jet that suddenly dropped into their passengers prone to the cabin. First tonight with 50 million Americans on alert this hour. Philadelphia to New York to Boston. Wind gusts reaching 50 miles per hour, and the winds have turned deadly now. A tree down at a home, nearly 4,000 flights canceled or delayed. Rob Marciano, what's coming next? The horrific crash word coming out of that school bus into a tractor trailer in the oncoming lane. Several people dead tonight, including children. The terrifying moments in the air, rolling passenger jet, passenger saying there was a sudden drop, and that many were thrown around the cabin. Reports of panels dislodged in the ceiling. At least 50 people hurt. The alarm images coming out of Haiti tonight. The U.S. Embassy evacuating American staffers before the sun came up. The Secretary of State now in the region tonight. The stark warning on Capitol Hill today. America's intelligence chiefs warning the most troubling global press among them China and influence over the U.S. election. Here in the U.S. the danger on our own border and the warning about Ukraine if the U.S. does not help. help where Russia is getting its weapons. The race to the White House tonight before President Trump said today about Social Security, Medicare, about entitlements, President Biden pouncing. Meanwhile, the growing rift tonight between Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and President Biden. Netanyahu now pushing back after what President Biden called a red line and what Biden said just moments ago. Tonight, Princess Catherine, the photo with her children suddenly pulled by news agencies saying the photo had been doctored, and the apology for Princess Kate. So why doesn't the royal family release the original? It's leading to even more questions tonight after Catherine's mystery surgery. Back here in the U.S., the photo attacked by a crocodile airlifted to the hospital. College basketball star Caitlin Clark and her new triumph tonight. And the Oscars, the big night, and what we didn't know about Ken Song. From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight with David York. The news started another week all. We begin the night with the dangerous winds and the downturn, deadly trees down, power outages, and more wind coming. More than 50 million Americans in the Northeast under wind alerts at this hour. Washington, D.C., New York City, and Boston all in the path. More than 4,000 flights canceled or delayed. And take a look at this map. These high wind numbers across the Northeast. Gusts between 40 and 50 miles an hour. The winds upward in Massachusetts, Brooklyn, New York, crushing a car near Prospect Park. This home in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, destroyed by a fallen tree, killing a person who was trapped inside. These winds are the tail end of the system that slammed east over the weekend at EF2 tornado. Winds 130 miles an hour, ripping through Granite County, Georgia, to 40 miles west Brunswick. Onshore winds flooding areas along the east coast is Hampton, New Hampshire. One of those areas underwater tonight. A Coast Guard crew braving rough water visits off Bass Harbor, Maine, rushing a patient to emergency care. This is not done yet, so let's see if we can Rob Marciano timing out for us. Hey, Rob.
Hi, David. This really wound up in a hurry yesterday. Continue to strengthen today, seemingly in no hurry to get out to sea. The low itself remains over Nova Scotia. We've got wind advisories most of it will remain up through the midnight hour. Now low, continue around winds. Well towards a daybreak tomorrow. 30, 40 mile per hour winds will continue, and we'll still be windy in the morning. Ground saturated still, so we probably see more in the way of trees coming down over the dicey side. Still windy in the Midwest as well, down to the Texas Panhandle, where they had that massive Texas fire. That's the biggest on history there. Red flag warnings are up tomorrow. We'll likely see critical fire danger through much of the week. Here in the east, the next 48 hours, could be on the danger side.
David, appreciate the warning. Rob Marciano leading us off here. Rob, thank you. We turned out that horrific crash. There is news coming in tonight. An awful crash. Collision between a school bus and a tractor trailer. Both vehicles erupting into flames. Both drivers were killed along with 3 children on that bus. ABC's house was shaken tonight, but authorities just now revealed.
Tonight, a horrific crash scene along this Illinois highway after a semi-truck collided with a school bus, killing 5 people, including all 3 preschool-age children on board.
Route 24 Cypress Park, school bus accident. At least 1 vehicle on fire.
It happened about 60 miles west of Springfield. Police say just after 11:30 this morning, the bus crossed the line into oncoming traffic and into the path of that truck hauling sand.
The bus was traveling west on Route 24 and for an unknown reason crossed over into the eastbound lanes in front of a semi-truck. Both vehicles became engulfed in flames.
Both drivers were also killed. The school bus scene here barely recognizable.
When you have lost lives like this, it's devastating. It's quite a tragedy.
David, tonight reporters were asked if drugs or alcohol played a role in this crash. Frankly, they can't answer that yet. This investigation is just getting started.
David, we're thinking about this family tonight. Alex, thank you. Now the terrifying midair scare on Boeing passenger jet, a sudden drop on board the Boeing 787 Dreamliner. Some passengers thrown in the cabin. At least 50 passengers and crew were injured in this. The flight from Australia to New Zealand tonight are the images, and just a short time ago the airline calling it a technical incident. Here's Trevor Rolt.
Tonight, video circulating online capturing the terror aboard a LATAM airline flight after passengers and crew were sent flying to the ceiling.
It felt more like an earthquake rather than turbulence, but it was just like the worst form of turbulence.
More than halfway through the 3-hour trip from Sydney, Australia to Auckland, New Zealand, passengers say flight LA 800 seemed to suddenly drop. Many of the 272 on board tossed around the cabin of the Boeing 787 Dreamliner.
I saw cut heads, a few neck braces being applied, people being patched up with cuts and bruises.
At least 50 passengers and crew needing treatment for injuries, more than a dozen taken to the hospital. Lucas Elwood and others helping this seriously injured person in the aisle.
Oh, everyone was terrified. There were people whimpering all over. There were people injured all over.
The aircraft landing safely in Auckland, and tonight the Chilean-based airline saying it deeply regrets any inconvenience and discomfort this situation may cause, saying the aircraft experienced a strong shake that's now under investigation.
The good news is that the black boxes will very quickly determine whether this was aircraft malfunction or just clear air turbulence.
And while the airline has referred to this as a technical incident, they have not yet specified what exactly went wrong here. David?
Yeah, that's the question. What does that mean? Trevor Rolt tonight. Trevor, thank you. We turn tonight to start warning the Capitol Hill today. America's top intelligence officials warning the most troubling global threats right now, and the list was long. China and the potential influence over the U.S. election. The warning about Ukraine, the U.S. does not help, where Russia is now getting weapons, and the danger here in the U.S. on our own border. Here's your thoughts.
Tonight, the nation's top intelligence officials warning the U.S. faces unprecedented threats internationally and here at home. Concerns that adversaries like China and Russia might try to use the emerging technology of artificial intelligence against the U.S. in the upcoming presidential election.
The threat of malign actors exploiting these tools and technologies to undercut U.S. interest in democracy is particularly potent as voters voted poll in more than 60 elections around the globe.
The FBI concerned about the potential that terrorists and others might try to come through a poor southern border.
A whole host of threats that emanate from the border. And some of them are criminal threats. We talked about that, violence. And then, of course, we have concerns that it could be a vulnerability that terrorist organizations could seek to exploit.
And tonight, the blunt assessment that Ukraine faces a critical window.
Ukraine's retreat from Avdiivka and their struggle to stave off further territorial losses in the past few weeks have exposed the erosion of Ukraine's military capabilities with the declining availability of external military aid. And without that assistance, it is hard to imagine how Ukraine will be able to maintain the extremely hard-fought advances it has made against the Russians, especially given the sustained surge in Russian ammunition production and purchases from North Korea and Iran.
And David, tonight the FBI director continues to warn that the terror threat is quote, at a whole other level. And with the war still raging in Gaza, nothing has changed to diminish his concerns.
David, that list was extensive today. Pierre, thank you. Now the race for the White House tonight, with former President Trump said just this morning about government entitlement programs, including Social Security. President Biden on the campaign trail in New Hampshire, pouncing. Here's Rachel Stuff.
Tonight, the stark difference between the two candidates on full display. President Biden seizing on new comments by Donald Trump. The former president seeming to suggest he would be open to cutting entitlements like Social Security and Medicare.
There is a lot you can do in terms of entitlements, in terms of cutting, and in terms of also the theft and the bad management of entitlements. Tremendous bad management of entitlements. There's tremendous amounts of things, numbers of things you can do.
Biden tweeting out Trump comments with these words: "Not on my watch." Hitting them again on the campaign swing in New Hampshire.
Donald Trump said cuts to Social Security and Medicare are on the table again. I'm never going to allow that to happen.
Biden today unveiling his budget wish list, a $7.3 trillion plan highlighting his priorities for voters. It includes $4.7 billion for border security and a host of programs to help the middle class, including a $2,600 child tax credit, a new tax credit for first-time homebuyers, and lowering the cost of prescription drugs, including insulin. To pay for it all, Biden wants to raise taxes on corporations and impose a 25% minimum tax on people worth more than $100 million. The president again drawing a sharp contrast with Donald Trump.
You really think the wealthy and big corporations need another $2 trillion tax break? Because that's what he wants to do.
Biden pledging that nobody who earns less than $400,000 will see their taxes go up.
Nobody. Not a single cent. Nobody will pay a single penny more, and they haven't thus far. Folks, it's all fundamental fairness.
David, back to Medicare and Social Security. Donald Trump saying there's a lot you can do in terms of entitlements, in terms of cutting. Now his campaign says what he was talking about was cutting waste, not the programs themselves. David.
Rachel Scott tonight. Rachel, thank you. This evening, the alarming images coming in from Haiti, the U.S. military evacuating some American personnel for the sun.
Will see their taxes go up.
Nobody. Not a single cent. Nobody will pay a single penny more, and they haven't thus far. Folks, it's all fundamental fairness.
David, back to Medicare and Social Security. Donald Trump saying today there's a lot you can do in terms of entitlements, in terms of cutting. Now his campaign says what he was talking about was cutting waste, not the programs themselves. David.
Rachel Scott tonight. Rachel, thank you. This evening, the alarming images coming in from Haiti, the U.S. military evacuating some American personnel before the sun came up over the weekend. Tonight, your ABC's Matt Rivers has reported extensively on Haiti for us, with troubling images now coming in.
Tonight, a gang-led rebellion from Haiti on the brink of collapse. This elderly woman shot in the leg, desperate for help. And with the U.S. military helicoptering non-essential personnel out of the U.S. Embassy on the cover of darkness early Sunday, Secretary of State Anthony Blinken traveled to Jamaica tonight for an emergency meeting with Caribbean leaders. It comes after coordinated gang attacks overthrow the government backed by Minister Ariel Henry. And behind it all, a warlord called Barbecue, demanding the acting Prime Minister step down and spoke to him over the weekend. If Ariel Henry resigns, will you stop fighting? Indeed, he says if Henry resigns, we will automatically stop the attacks. Over the past year, we have reported on the growing unrest, and it has become increasingly difficult to get in.
witnessing one of the worst humanitarian crises in the world. So a nurse just weighed Marvin, so you're using the scale. He's about 9 kilos or 20 pounds. He's 4 years old, and he weighs the exact same amount as my son, who's only 10 months old. Going here, the situation will only get worse. No end in sight to violence. David, the U.S. pushing Prime Minister Henry to cede power to a transition council will bring new elections to Haiti so far on Henry, refusing to resign. David, adversaries from Mexico City tonight, thank you. To London now to the royal photo of Princess Catherine and her children, suddenly recalled by photo agencies after they found the image had been doctored. Princess Kate then apologizing, but tonight Buckingham Palace still not releasing the original image, leading to even more questions about Princess Catherine and how she's doing after that sudden surgery. Jane Longman from London tonight.
This royal family photo was meant to calm speculation about the Princess of Wales' health. Tonight, that speculation in overdrive. After Kate admitted she doctored the image. The Princess of Wales herself writing, like many amateur photographers, I do occasionally experiment with editing. I wanted to express my apologies for any confusion the family photograph we shared yesterday caused. Conspiracy theories have run rampant online in the wake of Kate's absence from public life after she underwent what the palace called planned abdominal surgery in January. She hadn't been seen publicly since Christmas until this paparazzi photo emerged last week. Kate and her mother at Windsor. The palace says this new photo, released to celebrate Mother's Day in the UK, was taken last week by Prince William at their home.
Now, obviously put that photograph out to try to quell all the speculation.
Leading international photo agencies pulling it from their websites. An AFP analysis pointing out clear inconsistencies. Perhaps most glaring, Princess Charlotte's left hand and sleeve, partly erased. Charlotte's skirt waistband and hair at odd angles. As is a zipper on Kate's jacket. It doesn't appear to line up. Kate, by far the UK's most popular royal, seen leaving Windsor Castle today for a private appointment in the car with her husband, Prince William, later attending a major event without her. Some observers think one way for the palace to resolve this would be to release the original photograph. But tonight, David, they're saying they will not do that, and no further update on Kate's health. But tonight, David, they're saying they will not do that, and no further update on Kate's health. David, that's just okay. Very long tonight, James. Thank you. Now, the tensions between Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and President Biden have discussed what would be a red line for him. Back up from Israel. Tonight, a growing rift between President Biden and Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu after the president seemingly said an invasion into Rafah in the southern part of the Gaza Strip would be his red line.
Israel, I'm not going to leave Israel. You cannot have 30,000 more Palestinians dead as a consequence.
Moments later, walking those comments back saying Netanyahu's war was hurting Israel more than helping. For weeks, the White House has publicly urged Israel not to invade Rafah, where Hamas's remaining leaders and talents are believed to be hiding among civilians without a plan to protect the more than a million displaced Gazans there. Netanyahu declined, vowing to press on despite the president's concerns.
I have a red line. You know what a red line is? The October 7th doesn't happen again.
The leader trading barges the whole month of Ramadan begins, and as famine sets in, according to the UN, dozens, mostly children, have died from malnutrition. Some 12-year-old Muhammad clinging to life with severe dehydration and malnutrition. And if you recall, after the President's State of the Union address last week, he was caught off-light saying he had a quote, come to Jesus talk with Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu. Today he said he hasn't yet had that conversation, but left the option on the table. David, sorry, thank you. When we come back here in the U.S. tonight, the voter attacked by a crocodile airlifted to the hospital. There's condition coming in. Caitlin Clark and her new triumph tonight, and the Oscars and what we didn't know about Ken Song. Tonight, there's an investigation underway in South Florida after a crocodile attack inside Everglades National Park. A 68-year-old voter was airlifted to Miami's hospital, treated for a cut on his leg. Authorities say the man was trying to swim to shore after his boat capsized. He's expected to be okay. When we come back tonight, basketball star Caitlin Clark hits another milestone tonight in the Oscars and what few knew about Ken Song. To get Caitlin Clark does again, helping to lead her Iowa Hawkeyes to their third consecutive Big Ten title and take the big dance, defeating Nebraska 89-87 in overtime. Clark 34 points. When we come back, Oscars big night, and the famous dog for the movie, how they pulled off the dog, and all that clapping. ABC World News Tonight with David Muir, sponsored by Pacific Life, creating financial security for more than 150 years. For Best Picture, the dog clapping to Ken Song, almost didn't make the movie. The 96 Academy Awards and the big winner. Oppenheimer winning 7 Oscars, including Best Picture. Joey Murphy, Eddie Murphy winning Best Actor for the portrayal of Oppenheimer, the father of the atomic bomb.
For better or for worse, we're all living in Oppenheimer's world, so I'd really like to dedicate this to peacemakers everywhere.
Robert Downey Jr. nominated twice before with his first Oscar win for Best Supporting Actor in Oppenheimer.
I'd like to thank my terrible childhood and the Academy in that order.
Jay Vine.
Joy Randolph winning for Best Supporting Actress in The Holdovers.
You know, that was
Yes. No, he was a great kid. I got him one semester. Very insightful.
He hated you. For so long, I've always wanted to be different, and now I realize I just need to be myself. Emma Stone.
Winning Best Actress Emma Stone for 4 things.
Most importantly, my daughter, who's going to be 3 in 3 days, and has turned our life $10. I love you bigger than the whole sky, my girl.
There were just prizes. Messi, the border collie from Anatomy of the Fall, clapping for the winners. And this is how it was done.
I'm just kidding.
After Ryan Gosling singing I'm Just Ken, with 62 other Kens, Margot Robbie directed Greta Gerwig dancing too. Tonight, the song's co-writer and producer revealing that that song almost didn't make the final cut of the movie, but Greta Gerwig was determined. So night, I'll see you back here tomorrow. Good night. Thank you for making World News Tonight with David Muir, America's most watched newscast.
Tonight, Princess of Wales apologizing for the photo that caused a worldwide controversy. Princess Kate spotted today after acknowledging she edited this family photo. Signs of manipulation that led major news organizations to pull the image. It was supposed to be the first official photo since Kate underwent misery surgery nearly 2 months ago. Now it's fueling even more questions about her health. Also tonight, terrifying moments in midair aboard an international flight. Plane experiencing a strong shake. 50 people injured. What happened? The powerful winds turning deadly in the northeast, more than 50 million under alerts. Flight delays and tens of thousands without power. President Biden attacking something his likely opponent said about it. For former President Trump cut Social Security and Medicare. The delay in getting aid into Gaza. 200 tons of food. What's holding it up? It comes as the tensions between the U.S. and Israel spill out into the open. Our NBC News exclusive Charles Spencer, the brother of Princess Diana, speaking out about the sexual abuse he says he suffered at an elite boarding school. And 2 families, how one helped the other achieve the American dream. Now they're paying it back.
This is NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
Good evening and welcome. A suspicion that there is more or maybe less than meets the eye in a widely circulated photo of Britain's Princess Kate is stirring broad speculation tonight about the princess and her health, nearly 2 months after she was hospitalized for abdominal surgery. At first glance, the photo was a picture of happiness, a beaming princess embracing her children, the image released by Kensington Palace. But on closer examination, news agencies, including NBC News, identified signs the photo may have been manipulated. Tonight in a statement, the princess admitted she does occasionally experiment with editing and offered her apologies. News agencies killed the photo, but serious questions about the palace's credibility are very much alive tonight. Molly Hunter has the story from London.
Tonight, Kensington Palace now apologizing for the confusion caused by this undated photograph posted yesterday. The first official photo since her abdominal surgery back in January, meant to be a sweet gesture on UK Mother's Day, along with a message from Kate. Thank you for your kind wishes and continued support over the last 2 months.
Top stories this hour.
But that's not what made the headlines. Just hours after posting it, multiple news agencies recalled the photo after concerns of potential manipulation. The AP says it appears that the source had manipulated the image in a way that did not meet AP's photo standards, adding the photo shows an inconsistency in the alignment of Princess Charlotte's left hand seen right here. And the edge of Charlotte's hair appears to blur unnaturally, and you can see the corner of her skirt appears oddly straight. Kate's hair and zipper appear misaligned, and the edges of these tiles appear repeated.
The primary reason for releasing this photograph was for Kate and William to say nothing to see, people can stop worrying. In fact, it had the opposite effect. It's made people more concerned than they were before and more suspicious.
And then this morning, the palace apology with a confusing explanation. Signed C for Catherine, the princess wrote, like many amateur photographers, I do occasionally experiment with editing. I wanted to express my apologies for any confusion the family photograph we shared yesterday caused.
I think the best thing to be done now would be if Kate and William released the original photograph, warts and all, with no amendments and no changes made, so that we, the public, could see that the changes weren't that big a deal. But of course, that depends on those changes being quite minor.
So Molly, has the palace offered anything about what changes were made to the photo?
Lester, Kensington Palace source says the adjustments were minor. We have gone back to Kensington Palace to ask for more details. We've also asked about that original photo, and the palace says they have no plans to release it. Lester?
Molly Hunter, thanks. Some terrifying moments today in the air. Dozens of people injured after the Boeing 787 plane they were riding on encountered strong shaking. The cause is under investigation. Here's Tom Costello.
Video from inside Chilean flight LATAM 800 capturing the aftermath of some harrowing moments. On board the flight from Sydney to Auckland, New Zealand, 50 injured passengers and crew members. At least 1 lying on the floor, others with bleeding head injuries after being thrown to the ceiling. 13 secondary hospitals. In a statement, the airline says the plane experienced a strong shake during flight, the cause of which is currently under investigation. On FlightAware, LATAM 800 is shown flying at 41,000 feet when its altitude reading is suddenly lost for roughly an hour and 10 minutes, then reappearing as the plane approaches Auckland.
You can be sure that investigators are going to be downloading and analyzing that flight data report, as well as the memory on the flight control computers that control the flight
to this airplane. The Boeing 787 was supposed to fly onto Santiago after stopping in Auckland. Meanwhile, NBC News has confirmed that the Justice Department has launched a new criminal investigation into Boeing following the blowout of the door plug on the 737 MAX 9 in January. The NTSB has determined the plane left the Boeing plant without 4 critical bolts that hold the plug in place. Among the questions, does Boeing's admitted quality control breakdown violate a previous agreement with Justice after 2 fatal Boeing MAX 8 crashes killed 346 people? A scathing FAA audit found Boeing failed to comply with its own quality control procedures.
We're working with Boeing and demanding that they come up with a very detailed plan within the next 90 days to fix the quality issues that are out there.
And Tom, last week the NTSB accused Boeing of not cooperating in the MAX 9 investigation, but Boeing, I understand, has now handed over some more information.
Yeah, that's right. The NTSB says Boeing has now provided the names of 25 people who worked on that door plug before it was installed on the fuselage, but it's possible the work was never documented as required by the FAA.
All right, Tom Costello, thank you. Now, those ferocious, dangerous winds still sweeping across the northeast tonight, causing thousands of flight delays, widespread power outages, and at least 1 death. Aaron McLaughlin has late details.
Tonight's spring break travel is off to a bumpy start.
Wind everywhere was shaking, overthrow.
Strong winds snarling air travel at airports up and down the coast. So far today, there's been nearly 3,500 flight delays and more than 100 cancellations.
I just hope we make it on one time. I want to stay here tonight.
After a messy weekend of wet weather and harrowing escapes, that system blown out Monday by gusts up to 63 miles per hour, with tens of millions of Americans in the Northeast under wind alerts. The combination of rain-saturated soil and strong winds turned deadly overnight. In Pennsylvania, 43-year-old Scott Quickle was killed after a massive tree fell on his home. Meanwhile, across the tri-state area, the wind knocked out power for thousands. And in our nation's capital, the weather shut down monuments for a second day.
It used to be the weather yesterday. Well, it was predicted of the weather today, and that's no longer true. We're seeing much warmer winters, much wetter winters.
The unfortunate new reality of a winter of extremes. Aaron McLaughlin, NBC News, New York.
Let's turn the race for the White House now. A new clash over Social Security. President Biden accusing Donald Trump of suggesting he'd make cuts to the entitlement program. The Trump campaign firing back tonight, saying Mr. Trump never said that. Eric Hake now, late details.
President Biden ramping up his re-election campaign tonight, attacking Donald Trump in battleground New Hampshire.
Donald Trump said cuts to Social Security and Medicare are on the table again. I'm never going to allow that to happen.
Hitting the former president after he responded to a report who suggested something needed to be done about entitlements.
There is a lot you can do in terms of entitlements, in terms of cutting, and in terms of also the theft and the bad management of entitlements. I don't necessarily agree with the statement.
The Trump campaign saying he was not talking about cutting benefits, but cutting waste. Mr. Trump just last week posting Republicans have no plans to cut Social Security. The president today laying out his budget in a show of second-term priorities. The largely symbolic plan would boost spending to $7.3 trillion, while raising taxes on wealthy and corporations. The president calls for restoring the full child tax credit and proposes national paid leave.
Well, it's just about basic fairness, just basic decency.
Meanwhile, Mr. Trump in battleground Georgia blasting President Biden for saying he regretted using the word illegal to describe the alleged killer of Georgia nursing student Laken Riley. Police say the suspect was a Venezuelan migrant who crossed the border illegally 2 years ago.
Lincoln Riley, an innocent young woman who was killed by an illegal. I shouldn't use illegal. It's undocumented.
You regret using that word.
Yes.
Mr. Trump met with Laken Riley's family before his Georgia rally.
He was illegal. When I say he was an illegal alien, he shouldn't have been in our country, and he never would have been under the Trump policy.
And today, Mr. Trump's lawyers argue that the March start of his New York criminal trial should be delayed until the Supreme Court rules on his claim of presidential immunity. That judge will issue his decision as soon as next week. Lester.
Okay, thank you. In the Middle East, a ship that will bring desperately needed food to Gaza still has not left the territory tonight, as tensions grow between President Biden and Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu. Richard Engel with the latest.
200 tons of food, already rigorously inspected by Israeli officials, are ready to set sail, yet remain delayed in a port on the nearby island of Cyprus. The World Central Kitchen, the aid group shipping supplies, says it's not responsible for the holdup. Multiple aid agencies accuse Israel of imposing arbitrary restrictions to choke off Gaza and pressure Hamas, while President Biden's frustration with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is clearly growing. Mr. Biden now saying he has a red line, opposing a potential Israeli invasion of Rafah, where more than 1 million Palestinians are taking refuge.
Here's a red line. I'm not going to leave Israel. The defense of Israel is still critical, so there's no red line. I'm going to cut off all weapons so they don't have the Iron Dome to protect them.
Netanyahu responding tonight, still vowing to go into Rafah, saying his red line is preventing another Hamas terror attack.
The president and I have agreed that we have to destroy Hamas. We can't leave a quarter of the Hamas terror army in place. There in Rafah.
In Cyprus, we were given exclusive access to the command center, managing what officials hope will become a maritime aid corridor to Gaza.
If we have the final good result, then it will be a good omen for the continuation of this effort that is just started.
Airdrops are picking up, but each flight only carries the equivalent of a single truckload with food that could help 6-year-old Fadi survive. He has cystic fibrosis and needs a high-calorie and high-fat diet. His doctor and family say he's starving to death tonight, even though relief is tantalizingly close.
And that ship behind me is towing a barge and will only travel around 3 miles an hour and take 3 days to reach Gaza whenever receiving permission to leave. Lester.
All right, Richard Engel, thank you. We'll take a break in 60 seconds. The stubbornly high cost of food and one big grocery chain is keeping prices down. What you should know after this. At a time when Americans are frustrated by the high cost of groceries, some supermarket chains are keeping prices down by offering their own private brands. We get more from Sam Brock in the price you pay.
With the competition for grocery shoppers cooking, years of inflation has taken its toll on family budgets.
How important is price when it comes to where you shop?
Extremely important. You know, like the big, you have your constraints.
Quality food and price.
While food prices have finally started to plateau, one study shows they're up 25% since the start of the pandemic, and some items remain stubbornly expensive.
Is that beef? Is that pork? Is that chicken? You know, they're all in the dairy category.
With customers seeking out lower prices on items like milk, discount grocery store Aldi just announced plans for 800 new locations.
And the milk here really is more affordable. This entire thing is about $3 a gallon, but it's also sourdough bread and the chips, even the croissants. 94% of these products are private brand, which is one way they're keeping the price down.
Other price-sensitive chains are also expanding, from Costco adding 2 dozen U.S. stores in 2024 to Walmart opening up over the next 5 years. Could it put downward pressure on some of the other major grocery retailers to lower their prices too?
Absolutely. The big stores already have this competition in mind. But if you're a very small 2 or 3 store location, all these are probably your biggest threat.
Consumers just hoping all these additions lead to a subtraction on their bills. Sam Brock, NBC News, Miami.
And next for us, the shocking allegations by the brother of Princess Diana. Our exclusive interview is next. Now to our NBC News exclusive. He's the brother of Princess Diana, and tonight Charles Spencer is opening up about the horrifying physical and sexual abuse he says he and others suffered at an elite boarding school in the UK. He spoke with Cynthia McFadden.
Charles Spencer, brother of Princess Diana, a godchild of Queen Elizabeth and uncle of the future king,
You just have to walk down there.
says the English boarding school he attended from 8 to 13 was operated on a culture of secrecy and abuse.
This is not a bunch of mid-teen, late-teen kids going to a rough school. This is children being sexually, physically, and emotionally abused on a daily basis.
He says his book, A Very Private School, relies not just on his own experiences, but also what happened to 24 other classmates at Madewell Hall, who he interviewed over the past 5 years.
We were prey to very bad people's worst instincts.
Spencer sat down with NBC News for his first interview at Althorpe, his family's estate.
Every week, at least half a dozen would be whipped with a cane, and we all had showers together after sports, and you could see the blood, the split skin.
He says abuse came from some of the teachers too.
There was one particularly violent master, and he caught me by myself in a changing room going out to play cricket, and he just grabbed me and threw me over his knee, and cricket boots had spikes on the metal spikes, and he beat me and beat me.
But what has truly haunted him was being sexually abused at the age he was in this portrait, 11. The predator, he says, a young woman, a member of the staff charged with taking care of the young boys.
She would come round to my bed when others were asleep and kiss me, French kiss for ages, and it was so... If I was 17, 18, it would be a different thing, but I was 11. It was so confusing.
He says kissing led to intense fondling, and that she was sexually abusing several other boys and having intercourse with at least 2 of them. When he was 12, he says, in traveling with his mother in Italy, he secretly acted out the final scene of the sexual abuse from the year before.
I took my pocket money, and I lost my virginity to a prostitute. And at the age of 12, and I see that as the completion of what she done to me.
Madewell Hall is taking his charges seriously and told NBC News in a statement they have now reached out to the local authorities charged with protecting children. We will follow their guidance on what we do from this point. We would encourage anyone with similar experiences to come forward and contact those local authorities or the police. Spencer believes the young woman who sexually abused him and others is still alive.
alive. Unlike in the U.S., in Britain, there is no statute of limitations on rape or sexual assault. Cynthia McFadden, NBC News.
And we'll take a break right here. Up next, a tale of two families, the American dream and their extraordinary acts of kindness. Finally, two families bonded by one home, and a moving gesture now helping others chase their own American dreams. Here's Elwin Lopez.
The historic Hotel del Coronado was built in the late 1800s by thousands of workers who would never be able to step foot inside as guests, including Gus Thompson. Volunteer Gardner Kemp is his great-grandson.
It's still here.
It's still here, and it's still fabulous.
Gus Thompson was born into slavery. Eventually, he moved to California, where he and his wife Emma lived with their family just 3 blocks from the hotel.
This is unbelievable. This has been here since the late 1800s.
Correct, 1895 to be exact.
Kevin Ashley studies the city's black history.
Just the idea that there was a thriving African-American community between 1890 and 1920.
Was that shocking to you?
Hugely shocking.
During a time when housing laws favored white buyers and renters, Thompson and his family welcomed visitors that no one else would take in.
Their old original house, they usually rented out to immigrants.
Among them, Chinese-American Garner Lloyd Dong.
He was having trouble, wasn't a lot available.
His son Ron was just a toddler at the time.
So that's the beginning of it.
A new beginning for the Dongs who ultimately bought the house. Now, decades later, they're selling it and pledging the proceeds to San Diego State University's Black Resource Center, a gesture that pays it forward to the next generation, and one that has been in the making for nearly 100 years.
Paying it forward, shall we say. It's just the icing on the cake. It's a beautiful story. Maybe it's one that the world needs to hear.
Elwin Lopez, NBC News, Coronado, California.
And that's nightly news for this Monday. Thank you for watching, everyone. I'm Lester Holt. Please take care of yourself and each other. Good night.
Thank you for watching and privilege of your time. This is Amir Shakil 5858. I am Amir Goodman. Have a good life.